The communications console beeped softly in the quiet of the night shift. Hyun-woo leaned forward in his chair, rubbing his eyes. 3 months into a routine patrol mission, and the most exciting thing he had encountered was a meteorite shower last week. He tapped the screen to silence the alert, expecting another false reading from the sensor array. But the signal persisted. A distress beacon, faint and flickering, originating from somewhere in the Outer Rim territories. Hyun-woo sat up straighter, his fingers dancing across the controls as he tried to clean up the signal. The pattern was clear once he filtered out the background noise. Someone was in trouble. "Captain Jia, to the bridge, please." Hyun-woo spoke into the ship-wide comm system. His voice remained calm, professional. That was the human way. Stay cool under pressure. Deal with problems as they came. Jia arrived within 2 minutes, her short hair still wet from the shower. She had been off duty, catching a few hours of rest before her next shift. Behind her came Tai Yang, the medical officer, still buttoning up his uniform jacket. Word traveled fast on a ship as small as the horizon's edge. "What do we have?" Jia asked, moving to stand behind Hyun-woo's station. "Distress beacon, Captain. Tau Verdis mining colony. The signal has been running for approximately 3 days based on the degradation pattern." Hyun-woo pulled up a star map, highlighting their position and the source of the signal. "We're the closest vessel. 18 hours at maximum cruise speed." Jia studied the display, her dark eyes narrowing. 3 days. Has anyone responded?" "Negative, Captain. I checked the Galactic Council emergency channels. The signal was logged and filed for review, but no action has been taken yet." Tai Yang moved closer, peering at the screen. "Tau Verdis is a Venlari colony, right? They're fragile. 3 days without help could mean significant casualties if there's been an accident." Jia nodded slowly. She knew the regulations as well as anyone. Protocol stated that distress calls in Council space should be handled by Council peacekeepers. Earth vessels were supposed to report such incidents and wait for authorization before intervening. It was one of the many rules that came with humanity's provisional membership in the galactic community. But Jia also knew something else. She knew that humans had sailed Earth's oceans for thousands of years, and one law had always remained sacred above all others. You answered a distress call. You helped those in danger. You did not wait for permission to save lives. "Sungmin, get up here," Jia called out. Within moments, the tactical officer appeared on the bridge, alert despite the late hour. "I need a threat assessment for the Tau Verdis sector." Sungmin's fingers flew across his console. "Outer Rim territory, minimal council presence. Known for occasional pirate activity, but nothing major in the last 6 months. The sector is considered low priority by council standards. Which means if something bad happened there, help might not arrive for days or even weeks," Tai Yang observed quietly. Jia made her decision. She had not become a starship captain by playing it safe. "Hyun-woo, transmit our intentions to Earth Command. Inform them we are responding to an active distress call under maritime law provisions. Sungmin, plot the fastest course to Tau Verdis. Dayun, I need maximum sustainable speed from the engines." The engineering chief's voice crackled over the comm system. "You'll have it, Captain. We can push to 0.95 light speed if you need it." "Do it! All hands battle stations! This is not a drill!" Jia settled into the captain's chair, her jaw set with determination. "We're going to see what's happening at Tau Verdis." The horizon's edge turned smoothly in space, its fusion engines flaring bright as it accelerated toward the distant colony. In the crew quarters, off-duty personnel scrambled to their posts. This was what they had trained for, what every human crew trained for. Earth might be new to the galactic stage, but its people brought with them thousands of years of military tradition, rescue operations, and a stubborn refusal to abandon those in need. Hyun-woo continued monitoring the distress signal as they traveled. It never changed, never wavered, just the same automated message repeating endlessly into the void. Help, emergency, coordinates, the universal plea of the desperate. Anything from Earth Command? Gia asked after an hour had passed. Acknowledged, Captain. They're logging our response and informing the Galactic Council. No orders to stand down. Hyunwoo paused, then smiled slightly. Admiral Park sent a personal message. Give them hell if they need it. Gia allowed herself a brief smile. The Admiral understood. Earth's military leadership had not forgotten what it meant to be human, even among the stars. They remembered that humanity had clawed its way up from the caves and oceans of a deadly world. They remembered that humans protected their own, and increasingly, they protected anyone who needed it. Taiyang began preparing the medical bay, setting up triage areas and checking supplies. He did not know what they would find at Tau Verdis, but he knew enough about Venlari physiology to be concerned. The species was brilliant, their minds capable of mathematical calculations that would take human computers hours to process. But they were delicate, evolved on a world with low gravity and a gentle climate. An industrial accident could be catastrophic for them. As the hours passed, the crew of the Horizon's Edge ran drills and checked equipment. Sung-min reviewed tactical scenarios, preparing for anything from structural failures to hostile encounters. Da-Yun pushed the engines hard, coaxing every bit of speed from the vessel while keeping everything running smoothly. And on the bridge, Ji-Ah sat in silence, watching the stars stream past. Somewhere ahead in the darkness, someone had sent out a call for help. That tiny signal, that fragile hope cast into the void, had reached human ears. Now nothing would stop them from answering it. This was the human way. This was what separated them from so many other species in the galaxy. When someone cried out in the darkness, humans came running. The Horizon's Edge raced through space, carrying hope toward those who had nearly given up. The Horizon's Edge dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Tau Verdis system. Immediately, warning lights flashed across every console on the bridge. Sung-min's tactical display lit up like a festival of bad news. Captain, I'm reading 7 vessels in orbit around Tau Verdis. Configuration matches Krelith Raider-class warships. His voice remained steady, but his knuckles were white on the edge of his console. Ji-Ah felt her stomach tighten. Raiders. Not an accident, not a natural disaster. This was something far worse. Go to silent running. Keep us in the shadow of that moon. I want to see what we're dealing with before they spot us. Da-Yun killed all unnecessary systems from engineering, reducing their sensor signature to almost nothing. The Horizon's Edge drifted like a ghost behind the small rocky moon, its cameras and sensors trained on the planet below. What they saw made Taiyang's hands clench into fists. The mining colony on Tau Verdis was surrounded by Krelith ships. The colony's dome structures showed damage, and dozens of small figures could be seen moving in organized lines under guard. Even from this distance, it was clear what was happening. The Venlari were being enslaved. Those bastards, Hyunwoo whispered, his usual calm cracking. They're taking the whole colony. Gia zoomed in the visual feed. The Krelith were reptilian creatures, larger and stronger than humans, with thick scales that served as natural armor. They moved among the Venlari with casual cruelty, striking anyone who moved too slowly. The Venlari themselves looked terrible, their thin bodies shaking, many of them collapsed on the ground. The Krelith want them for their computational abilities, Taiyang said quietly, his medical training allowing him to assess the situation clinically even as anger burned in his chest. Venlari can perform complex calculations in their heads. They would be valuable as slaves for navigation, engineering, probability assessment. Sung-min was already running numbers. Captain, we have a problem. Those 7 Krelith warships outgun us significantly. Each one is larger than the horizon's edge, and their combined firepower is approximately 15 times our own. In a direct engagement, they would destroy us in minutes. Jia nodded slowly. She had expected as much. Hyun-woo, send a priority message to Earth Command. Request immediate military assistance. Include all tactical data. Sent, Captain, but the nearest Earth fleet is 6 days away. 6 days. Jia looked at the screen again, watching as Krelith guards herded another group of Venlari toward waiting transport ships. How long until they finish loading their prisoners? Sungmin checked the activity patterns. Based on their current pace, they'll have everyone off-world within 24 hours, maybe less. The bridge fell silent. Everyone understood the situation. If they waited for help, the Venlari would be gone, scattered across Krelith space as slaves. Many would die in transit. Taeyang's scans showed that several were already in critical condition, but if they acted now, they would be facing impossible odds. Can you get me a secure communication channel to the colony? Jia asked Hyun-woo. Working on it, Captain. The Krelith have jammed most frequencies, but I can try routing through the mining equipment network. It's old technology. They might not be monitoring it. His fingers danced across the keyboard. Got it. Tight beam. Heavily encrypted. You're connected to someone identifying as Ventari, colony administrator. Jia activated the channel. Ventari, this is Captain Jia of the Earth vessel Horizon's Edge. We received your distress signal. What is your situation? The response came back in a thin, trembling voice. Captain, is that really you? We thought no one was coming. The council, they told us help was on the way, but that was 3 days ago. We're here now. Tell me what happened. Ventari explained quickly. The Krelith had arrived without warning, overwhelming the colony's minimal defenses within hours. They had killed anyone who resisted and were now preparing to transport the survivors to their empire for slave labor. They said they chose us because we are far from council protection. They said no one would care about a small mining colony. They were wrong, Jia said firmly. We care. I need you to stay strong, Ventari. Can you organize your people? When we make our move, you'll need to get everyone to shelter quickly. There was a pause. Captain, forgive me, but we can see your ship on our sensors. You are alone, and they have 7 warships. How can you possibly fight them? Jia smiled, though Ventari could not see it. Because we're human. We do things differently. After ending the call, Jia stood and faced her crew. They all looked at her expectantly. They knew what was coming. They had known from the moment they saw those Krelith ships. I won't order anyone to do this, Jia said clearly. What I'm about to propose breaks multiple regulations and will probably get us all killed. If anyone wants to object, now is the time. No one spoke. No one moved. They just waited. Humans have a rule that goes back thousands of years, Jia continued. We don't negotiate with slavers. We don't bargain with them. We don't wait for proper authorization or perfect conditions. We end them. She looked at each crew member in turn. Da-un, I need every creative trick you've ever learned. Sungmin, find me their weaknesses. Taeyang, prepare for mass casualties. Hyun-woo, I need you to get inside their heads. What about you, Captain? Sungmin asked. Jia's smile was cold. I'm going to remind the Krelith why Earth is classified as a death world, and why that classification should terrify them. The crew scattered to their stations with renewed purpose. They were 1 ship against 7. They were outgunned, outnumbered, and operating without authorization. By any logical calculation, they should run. They should wait for help. They should follow the rules. But they were human. Logic was useful, but it had never been what defined humanity. What defined them was the stubborn, reckless, beautiful insistence that some things mattered more than survival. Some things were worth dying for. As the horizon's edge began preparing for battle, 7 Krellith warships continued their operations around Tau Verdis, completely unaware that they had just awakened something ancient and terrible. They had caught the attention of Deathworlders, and Deathworlders did not forgive those who preyed on the weak. Da-Un stood in the cargo bay, looking at equipment that had never been designed for combat. Mining drones, industrial cutters, cargo containers filled with various materials. To most engineers, this was just standard ship inventory. To a human engineer with her back against the wall, it was an arsenal waiting to be assembled. "We can rig the mining drones with the spare fuel cells," she muttered, sketching rapidly on her tablet. "Turn them into guided missiles. Won't be pretty, but they'll punch holes in those Krellith ships." On the bridge, Sung-min worked on a different problem. Krellith ships were tough, designed to take punishment. But they had a weakness, something he had learned from old Earth military databases. The Krellith themselves could not handle high-G maneuvers. Their biology was not built for it. Anything over 4 gravities would knock them unconscious or kill them outright. Humans, on the other hand, could survive much more. With pressure suits and proper preparation, a human could endure 10, even 12 gravities for short periods. It would hurt, it might cause damage, but they would remain conscious and functional. In space combat, that difference could be everything. "Captain," Sung-min called out, "I have an idea, but you're not going to like it." Jia listened to his plan and smiled grimly. "You're right, I don't like it, but it'll work. Get everyone into high-G suits, medical, prep stimulants, and crash recovery treatments." Hyun-woo, meanwhile, was waging a different kind of war. He had hacked into the Krellith communication network, not to gather intelligence, but to deliver a message. On every screen, every display, every communication device in the Krellith fleet, his message began to play. It was a history lesson, images from Earth's past. Humans fighting pirates on ancient seas. Humans hunting down slave traders across continents. Humans storming fortresses to free prisoners. And with each image, Hyun-woo's calm voice explained what humans did to those who took slaves. The message was clear. Surrender now, or learn why fear of humans was justified. The Krellith commander, Krell Tar, laughed when he saw the broadcast. One tiny ship was trying to scare his entire fleet with pictures and stories. It was absurd. He ordered his weapons officers to locate and destroy the human vessel. That was when the horizon's edge attacked. Da-Un's makeshift missiles launched first, 18 mining drones modified with explosive fuel cells. They moved erratically, not following standard attack patterns, confusing the Krellith targeting computers. 3 were shot down, but 15 struck home, smashing into the hulls of different Krellith ships. The explosions were not large enough to destroy the warships, but they damaged sensors and weapon systems. Then the horizon's edge moved. Jia pushed the engines to maximum, pulling a tight arc that put the ship under 8 gravities of acceleration. On the Krellith vessels, crew members collapsed, their bodies unable to handle the crushing force. But on the horizon's edge, humans gritted their teeth and stayed conscious through sheer willpower and biological resilience. Sung-min fired the main weapons during the maneuver, targeting the locations Da-Un's missiles had already weakened. 2 Krellith ships took critical damage, their engines failing. They began to drift out of formation. "Boarding pods away!" Sung-min called out. 6 small pods shot from the horizon's edge, each containing 4 humans in combat armor. This was the truly insane part of the plan. Instead of fighting ship to ship, they were going to board the enemy vessels and fight hand-to-hand. Sung-min's pod was first to breach a Krellith hull. The 12 humans inside moved with practiced efficiency, weapons ready. They cut through the outer airlock and entered a cargo bay filled with confused and disoriented Krellith who were still recovering from the high-G maneuver. The Krellith were larger, stronger than humans in normal conditions. But these were not normal conditions. The humans had trained for years in various gravity levels, in environments ranging from frozen tundra to scorching deserts. They moved through the ship like ghosts, using their smaller size to navigate cramped spaces and their endurance to keep fighting when the Krellith tired. Sungmin led his team deeper into the ship, targeting life support and navigation systems. They encountered resistance, but the Krellith were confused, unable to understand enemies who seemed to shrug off injuries that should have been crippling. One human took a plasma burn that would have killed most species, administered first aid to himself, and kept fighting. On another ship, a boarding team deliberately breached a coolant line, flooding a section with temperatures that dropped to -40 degrees. The Krellith fled the freezing air. The humans, adapted from a species that had survived ice ages, simply sealed their suits and continued their mission. Tai Yang coordinated the medical response from the horizon's edge while simultaneously treating wounded crew members. He worked with a calm efficiency that amazed even his own team, performing surgery with one hand while directing rescue operations with the other. On the bridge of his flagship, Krelltar watched in growing horror as his fleet fell apart. 2 ships were crippled. 3 more were being torn apart from the inside by boarding teams. The humans were doing things that should not be possible. They fought in conditions that should kill them. They survived wounds that should end them. They refused to stop. "All ships, focus fire on that human vessel," Krelltar ordered desperately. But the horizon's edge was already moving again, pulling another high-G maneuver that left Krellith gunners unconscious at their posts. Jia pushed her ship and her crew to the absolute limit, dancing between enemy fire with a precision that bordered on supernatural. Then Hyun Woo's voice cut across all channels, including the Krellith frequencies. "Attention, Krellith fleet. This is Captain Jia of the Horizon's Edge. Your commander, Krelltar, I challenge you to single combat. Face me or be known as a coward who hides behind his warriors." Krelltar's pride would not allow him to refuse, especially not in front of his entire fleet. He agreed, naming a location on Tau Vertis's surface near the captured colony. 20 minutes later, Jia stood in an open area surrounded by both Krellith and freed Venlari. Krelltar towered over her, nearly twice her height, his scales gleaming in the artificial light. He had claws that could tear through steel. He had killed dozens of beings in personal combat. Jia had spent her childhood training in 3 different martial arts. She had survived Earth's military academy, which had a 20% injury rate during training. She carried the scars of a dozen battles across her body. When Krelltar charged, confident in his size and strength, Jia moved like water. She used his momentum against him, redirecting his attacks, striking at weak points between his scales. It was not a fair fight. It was a lesson in why humans had climbed to the top of their planet's food chain, despite being smaller and weaker than many predators. Humans did not win through strength alone. They won through intelligence, adaptation, endurance, and sheer stubborn refusal to give up. 10 minutes later, Krelltar lay unconscious on the ground. Jia stood over him, breathing hard but still standing. She looked up at the remaining Krellith ships and spoke clearly. "Leave now. Release your prisoners. If I ever hear of you taking slaves again, I will find you. And next time, I will bring the entire human fleet." The Krellith ships began to retreat, abandoning their commander and fleeing into deep space. The Deathworlders had won. Tai Yang worked without stopping for 36 hours straight. The medical bay of the Horizon's Edge had become a triage center, with Venlari patients lying on every available surface. Some were suffering from malnutrition and dehydration. Others had injuries from Krellith brutality. A few were in critical condition, their fragile bodies pushed beyond what they could endure. The medical officer moved between patients with quick efficiency, his hands steady even as exhaustion pulled at him. Earth medical training was harsh, designed to prepare doctors for the worst possible conditions. Tai Yang had once performed surgery during an earthquake simulation. This was hard, but he had faced worse during his training. "Doctor, this one's crashing," called out his assistant, a young ensign named Min Seo, who was getting a brutal introduction to emergency medicine. Tai Yang was there in seconds, his scanner already reading the Venlari's vital signs. The patient's triple-chambered heart was failing, unable to recover from the stress of captivity. In the Galactic Council's medical database, this would be listed as terminal. The Venlari would be made comfortable and allowed to die. But human medicine did not give up so easily. Tai Yang had studied xenobiology specifically because he knew humans would encounter species different from themselves. He had memorized the biological structures of 40 different species. "Get me the cardiac stimulator, modified setting, pattern 7. "Doctor, that's not approved for Venlari physiology," Min Seo protested. "It is now. Do it!" Tai Yang's voice left no room for argument. The stimulator worked. The Venlari's heart stabilized, and color slowly returned to their pale skin. It was a small victory among many that day, but Tai Yang allowed himself a moment of satisfaction before moving to the next patient. On the bridge, Jia faced a different kind of crisis. Her communication console was flooded with incoming messages. Some were from Earth Command requesting detailed reports. Others were from Galactic Council representatives demanding explanations. A few were from news agencies across the galaxy, all wanting interviews with the human crew that had defeated a Krellith raiding fleet. "Captain, we have an incoming vessel," Hyun Woo reported. "Earth diplomatic ship. Ambassador Boram is requesting permission to come aboard." Jia sighed. She had known the diplomats would arrive eventually. What she and her crew had done was going to create political waves across the entire galaxy. "Grant permission. Have her meet me in the conference room." Boram arrived 2 hours later, stepping off her shuttle with the practiced calm of someone who had negotiated with dozens of alien species. She was older than Jia, her hair showing streaks of gray, her eyes sharp and assessing. She greeted the captain with a respectful nod before getting straight to business. "You've created quite a situation, Captain." "We saved lives, Ambassador. That's our job." "Yes? And you've also terrified half the Galactic Council and impressed the other half. Some species are calling you heroes. Others are calling for your court-martial." Boram pulled up a holographic display showing news feeds from across the galaxy. "The Krellith Empire is demanding reparations. They claim you attacked their vessels without provocation." Jia felt her temper flare. "Without provocation? They were enslaving an entire colony." "I know, Captain. I know." Boram held up a hand. "I'm not the enemy here. I'm trying to manage the fallout so that what you did actually helps rather than hurts humanity's position in the galaxy." Over the next several days, the Galactic Council held emergency sessions to discuss the Tau Vertis incident. Ventari was invited to testify, and the small Venlari administrator's words carried weight. They described how the distress signal had gone unanswered for days, how the Krellith had brutalized their people, how the humans had risked everything to save strangers they had no obligation to help. "They are terrifying," Ventari said clearly, their voice transmitted across the entire council chamber. "But they are terrifying in the way that a guardian is terrifying to those who would do harm. They scare me, yes. But they also saved my life and the lives of my people. I will forever be grateful to Captain Jia and her crew." The testimony was powerful, but the council remained divided. Councillor Thexan, representing a prey species that had suffered under predator aggression for centuries, spoke in favor of the humans. "For too long we have hidden behind bureaucracy and procedure while the weak suffer. The humans showed us that sometimes action matters more than authorization." But Councillor Vroth, from a predator species that valued military strength, was suspicious. "The humans acted with reckless disregard for proper protocol. What happens when they decide our laws do not matter?" What happens when they use this violence against those who have not wronged them? Boram addressed the council with diplomatic skill. Earth does not seek to undermine the council's authority, but we cannot and will not ignore distress calls. Our history, our culture, our very biology drives us to protect those in danger. We offer a compromise. Recognize humanity's rapid response teams as official emergency responders, subject to council oversight, but with authority to act immediately when lives are at risk. The debate continued for weeks. Meanwhile, on Tau Verdis, reconstruction began. Human engineering teams worked alongside Venlari survivors to rebuild the damaged colony. Tai Yang's medical staff trained local Venlari doctors in new trauma care techniques. The relationship between the two species deepened, built on shared hardship and mutual respect. Hyun Woo spent his time analyzing the battle, writing detailed reports that would become required reading at Earth's military academies. The tactics used at Tau Verdis, the improvised weapons, the psychological warfare, all of it became part of humanity's growing knowledge base for space combat. Sung Min recovered from his injuries, the plasma burns and broken bones healing slowly. He spent his recovery time training the next generation of boarding specialists, passing on hard-won knowledge about fighting in zero-gravity and hostile environments. Da-Un became something of a celebrity among human engineers. Her improvised missile drones were studied and improved, becoming standard equipment on Earth vessels. She downplayed her role, insisting she had just used what was available, but her innovations saved lives in future conflicts. One evening, Jia stood in the observation deck of the horizon's edge, looking out at Tau Verdis. The planet glowed softly in the light of its sun, the colony's domes rebuilt and functioning. Ventari joined her, moving with the careful grace of their species. "Your people did something remarkable here," Ventari said softly. "You changed everything." "We just answered a distress call," Jia replied. "No, Captain. You proved that mercy and strength are not opposites. You showed the galaxy that it is possible to be both kind and fierce. That is a lesson many species have forgotten, if they ever knew it at all." Jia smiled slightly. "We're still learning ourselves. Humans can be cruel. We've done terrible things to each other throughout our history, but we're trying to be better. We're trying to use our strength to protect rather than oppress." "That is all anyone can ask," Ventari said. Back on Earth, in the halls of government and military command, decisions were being made. Humanity's role in the galaxy was being redefined. No longer would they sit quietly on the sidelines. No longer would they wait for permission to do what was right. The message was clear, sent to every corner of known space. Humans answered distress calls, always, without exception. Anyone who needed help, anyone in danger, could count on humanity to come running. It was a promise and a warning, wrapped together in one simple truth. The Deathworlders were here, and they were not going away. 6 months had passed since Tau Verdis. Jia stood on the bridge of her new flagship, the Indomitable, watching her fleet perform maneuvers in deep space. She was a Commodore now, given command of humanity's rapid response fleet. 20 vessels, all equipped with the latest technology, all crewed by people who understood that speed and courage saved lives. The promotion had come with ceremony and speeches, but Jia remembered the moment differently. She remembered Admiral Park looking her in the eye and saying simply, "We need more people like you out there, people who won't hesitate when someone needs help." Now she commanded those people. Sung Min served as her tactical chief, coordinating the fleet's combat operations. Hyun Woo managed communications across all 20 ships. His expertise in psychological operations now formalized into official doctrine. Tai Yang led a medical team of 40 doctors, ready to handle mass casualty situations anywhere in the sector. Dayun had been offered a comfortable research position on Earth, but she turned it down. "Someone needs to keep these ships running," she had said with a grin. "Besides, my best ideas come when I'm solving impossible problems." The Horizon's Edge remained in service, now commanded by a young captain named Jun Ho, who had studied every detail of the Tau Vertis engagement. The ship had become famous, a symbol of humanity's commitment to protecting the innocent. "Commodore, incoming transmission from Galactic Council headquarters," Hyun Woo reported from his station. Jia nodded. "Put it through." Counselor Thexen's image appeared on the screen. The alien's expression was difficult to read, but their voice carried warmth. "Commodore Jia, I wanted to personally inform you that the Council has officially recognized Earth's Rapid Response Fleet. You now have full authority to respond to distress calls throughout Council space." It had taken 6 months of negotiation, debate, and political maneuvering, but Boram had made it happen. Humanity was no longer constrained by bureaucratic delays. When someone needed help, humans could act immediately. "Thank you, Counselor. We won't abuse this trust." "I know you won't, Commodore. Your actions at Tau Verdis prove that. I have also been authorized to share some interesting statistics with you. Since your intervention became public knowledge, pirate activity in the Outer Rim has decreased by 63%. Slaver raids have dropped even more dramatically. It seems the mere possibility of encountering human forces is enough to deter many criminals. Jia felt pride swell in her chest. This was what they had fought for. Not glory, not recognition, but real change that saved real lives. After the call ended, she reviewed the latest reports. Distress beacons across the galaxy were now being answered within hours instead of days. Other species, inspired by humanity's example, had created their own rapid response teams. The Galactic Council was reforming its emergency protocols, making them faster and more effective. On Tau Verdis, the colony thrived. The Venlari had not only rebuilt, but expanded, and they had invited human engineers to help them develop new mining techniques that were safer and more efficient. Ventari now served as an unofficial ambassador, traveling between Earth and Venlari worlds to strengthen the alliance. The Venlari administrator had visited Earth 2 months ago and sent Jia a message that she had saved on her personal tablet. "I walked through your forests and climbed your mountains. I felt your gravity pulling at me with every step. I experienced storms that would destroy buildings on my home world. And I understood. I finally understood why you are the way you are. Your world tried to kill you for millions of years, so you learned to fight back. You learned to endure. You learned to protect each other because survival demanded it. Earth is a beautiful nightmare, and it created the most terrifyingly compassionate people I have ever met." Jia treasured those words because they captured something essential about humanity. They were fierce because their world had demanded it. They were kind because they remembered what it was like to struggle. They protected others because they knew what it meant to be vulnerable. "Commodore, we have a distress signal," Hyun-Woo's voice cut through her thoughts. "Commercial transport under attack by unknown hostiles. Distance, 6 light hours." Jia did not hesitate. "All ships, battle formation. Plot fastest intercept course. Launch reconnaissance drones ahead of the fleet." She switched to fleet-wide communications. "This is Commodore Jia to all vessels. Someone needs our help. Let's show them what humanity does best." The 20 ships of the Rapid Response Fleet turned as one, their engines blazing as they accelerated toward the distress signal. On Earth, monitoring stations tracked their movement and updated the tactical boards. In Council space, other species watched the human fleet deploy and felt safer knowing they were out there. The Krellith Empire had fragmented after Tau Verdus. Several raiding fleets had actually surrendered to human patrols rather than risk combat. The remaining Krellith leadership was desperately trying to reform their government, abandoning the slaving operations that had defined their culture for generations. They had learned, painfully, that the galaxy had changed. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Tai Yang reviewed medical readiness reports while Sung Min coordinated tactical approach vectors. Da-Un coaxed extra speed from the engines, knowing that every second could mean the difference between life and death for whoever had sent that distress call. And Jia stood at the center of it all, calm and focused, embodying the best of what humanity could be. She thought about that first distress signal from Tau Verdus, the one that had started everything. One tiny SOS, one desperate plea for help, and humanity had answered with everything they had. Now, answering distress calls was what they did. It was their calling card, their contribution to galactic civilization. Other species had different strengths. The Venlari had their computational abilities. The Thexians had their philosophical wisdom. The Vrothians had their strategic planning. Humans had something else. They had the courage to run toward danger when everyone else was running away. They had the strength to endure terrible conditions and keep fighting. They had the compassion to risk everything for strangers. And they had the stubborn, relentless refusal to abandon anyone who needed help. Approaching the distress signal, Hyun Woo reported. Sensors show it's a Thexian vessel under attack by 3 pirate ships. The Thexians helped us at the council, Jia said. Time to return the favor. All ships, weapons free. Show them why pirates should fear the Outer Rim. The rapid response fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation, their weapons already charging. The pirates took one look at the human vessels and fled without firing a shot. They had heard the stories. They knew better than to fight Deathworlders. The Thexian captain transmitted a message of profound gratitude, their voice shaking with relief. Jia accepted it graciously, then offered medical assistance and an escort to their destination. This was the new normal. This was what the galaxy looked like when someone actually cared about protecting the weak. Later, as the fleet resumed patrol duties, Jia found herself thinking about the future. Humanity was still young on the galactic stage. They had so much to learn, so many mistakes yet to make. But they had also proven something important. They had proven that strength and mercy could coexist, that advanced technology and ancient values could work together, that a species from a death world could become the galaxy's guardians rather than its conquerors. In orbit above Tau Verdus, a memorial station floated in the darkness. It had been built jointly by humans and Venlari, a permanent reminder of the day everything changed. The inscription was visible to any ship that passed by, written in dozens of languages so that all species could read it. One voice in the darkness, one answer from the light. This is the way of Deathworlders. Jia had visited the memorial once, standing in the observation deck with Ventari and the rest of her original crew. They had been quiet, reflecting on everything that had happened since that first distress signal. Now, 6 months later, Jia commanded a fleet. Humanity had a seat at the galactic table. The weak were safer because someone finally cared enough to act. And it had all started with one tiny SOS that had reached human ears. The Indomitable's sensors detected another distress beacon, this one faint and distant. Jia looked at her crew, saw their readiness, their determination, their absolute commitment to the mission. "All hands to stations," she ordered. "Someone needs help." And the rapid response fleet turned toward the signal, carrying hope through the darkness of space, proving once again that when you called out for help, the Deathworlders would answer.